Hello Internet, my name is Brink and welcome to my quick start guides. Today we're taking a look at the Sand Lane Blood Deathknight rotation. This isn't a full deep dive, see it as a core rotation guide, providing you with the foundation you need and help you understand how the spec works, so you can get quickly comfortable at the start of the new expansion. No homework, no spreadsheets, just the important knowledge you need to start tanking with confidence. For this video, we'll be strictly focusing on the Sand Lane rotation and how it works together with a few important talents. This way you get a clear understanding of what is happening and why. Talent builds can be found in the description below. But before we dive in, if you have seen my Deathbringer rotation guide, feel free to skip to either the hero talent section or the chapter Sand Lane cooldown management. There is a lot of overlap and I don't want to waste anyone's time, so feel free to skip ahead, that's what the chapters are for. Okay, now let's dive straight in. So why should you pick Sand Lane? To be fair, Blizzard did a great job giving the Blood Deathknight two distinct identities. Deathbringer leans into necromantic burst damage with abilities like Reaper's Mark, embracing the darker executioner fantasy. Sand Lane, on the other hand, fully embraces the vampiric side of Blood Deathknight, draining life, wielding blood magic and sustaining itself through its enemies, sucking directly into their blood, just like a real vampire would. It even fits perfectly with the new Blood Mist animation of Dancing Rune Weapon, tying the entire playstyle together beautifully. I especially love the fact that Sand Lane blood beasts look like the ones from Deathbringer Sourfang in Icecrown Citadel. The theme and aesthetics are incredible, and the playstyle is just so satisfying. With balance tuning still evolving, it's exciting to see how the spec will continue to shine in the meta, or not. But right now, the Sand Lane experience is doing very well. Granted, the Deathknight overall could do with a bit more favorable tuning compared to the other tanks. But I digress, this isn't a tier list video. A lot of people were craving to play this build in the War Within, so if that was you, now is your chance. It's definitely viable. New talents that impact your rotation, on the class side of the tree. Well, this first one doesn't really have a huge impact on your rotation. I do feel it's worth mentioning. It's Blood Draw. When you fall below 30% health, you drain health from enemies. Damage you take is reduced by 10% and your death strike cost is reduced, so you can be sure to use it more often to get your health back up. Improved Death Strike lowers your death strike cost with 5 runic power. This combined with Ossuary, and when your health drops below 30%, your death strike cost can drop to a meager 25 runic power. On the spec side, a few talents that can affect your rotation. Ossuary. When 5 bone shield charges are active, the cost of your death strike is reduced by 5 runic power. Consumption. So in my last Blood Deathknight rotation guide, I said I wasn't a huge fan of this rework, and mostly because of the cast time and movement. Well, someone corrected me and said, Brink, do you know you can move as you like while casting? And he was right to correct me there. You can move as you like while holding down this cast. So I tested it again, but it still feels a bit odd for me. Moving around, charging this ability, holding up your weapon, but it is better that you can actually move. So I figured, let's take a better look at it and see if you should pick this, because it seems there are plenty of people out there that like this ability. So what does it do? First, damage reduction. While channeling, it reduces damage taken up to 15%. Nothing to sniff at. And it deals a significant amount of physical damage to enemies in a cone in front of the Deathknight. It deals massive shadow damage to all enemies in front of you while casting, as a defensive barrier, reducing your damage taken by up to 15% both during and after the channel. And then last but not least, it also has a Blood Plague interaction. It consumes up to 75% of the remaining duration of your Blood Plague instantly on enemies hit. Performance wise, you could definitely make the case it's worth choosing. It still feels like high risk, high reward, as it can be used to mitigate high damage scenarios, but then leaves you slightly vulnerable during the cast time. So in summary, Consumption is a powerful on-demand AoE heal damage tool, but it can still feel a bit clunky and arguably a risky choice. It comes down to preference. Do you like the ability and do you feel like it's what you're missing during your rotation? Then by all means go for it. If you think your life would be better and easier without it, then spend that talent point elsewhere. Bone Collector is a standout. And why? Well, it has a great passive effect that immediately grants you a stack of Bone Shield whenever you use a pull ability. It's simple but elegant. As from the latest testing so far, it only works on Death Caress. I would also expect it to work on Death Grip, Gorfin's Grasp and Abomination Limb. It used to work earlier in testing, so I'm assuming this is just a bug and it will be fixed before launch. Let me know in the comments if anything in the future has changed on this. Speaking of Abomination Limb is back. It's a choice node with Gorfin's Grasp. This one pulls all mobs together and silences them. Deadly Reach, a fresh addition that makes Deathstrike hit 2 extra enemies at 75% effectiveness. That is on the damage and healing department. This is huge for cleave situations and helps smooth out your threat and multi-target pulls. Lifeblood. This talent adds a healing over time effect every time you Deathstrike, smoothing out your healing. Maybe it got invented to soothe the minds of the healers, healing you, seeing your health less bouncing all over the place. Boiling Point. Heartstrike has a chance to make your blood boil empowered, dealing 50% increased damage. And the last talent I want to highlight, Blood Mists. Crazy animation of Dancing Rune Weapon, as it redesigns your Dancing Rune Weapon, giving it exactly what the name suggests, a mist of blood, making the ability feel more thematic and gives your Dancing Rune Weapon even more weight in your defensive and offensive window. The layn hero talent tree turns your Blood Deathknight into a vampiric tank, centered around Vampiric Strike. Vampiric Strike is an empowered version of Heartstrike that procs from Deathstrike or during Dancing Rune Weapon. Each Vampiric Strike grants a stack of Essence of the Blood Queen, giving you a haste bonus. Keeping these stacks active becomes a small passive minigame in the background of the spec. In Midnight, these 3 talents stand out. Transfusion. Vampiric Strikes strengthen your Dancing Rune Weapon. Inevitable. Boost your Blood Plague damage. And Newly Tuned. Your combat res now revives your ally at full health with a protective shield. And finally, the capstone talent, Gift of the layn. While Dancing Rune Weapon is active, your Essence of the Blood Queen becomes 200% stronger and Vampiric Strike replaces your Heartstrike. This means your haste stack becomes significantly stronger, turning a small buff into a very noticeable burst of speed during Dancing Rune Weapon. The Blood Deathknight Apex talent in Midnight turns Dancing Rune Weapon into a powerhouse. While Dancing Rune Weapon is active, parrying attacks can make your next Heartstrike free and a lot stronger. Each active rune weapon boosts damage while reducing what damage you take, and spending more runes can even summon extra rune weapons, extending those buffs further. Dancing Rune Weapon is still your core offensive and defensive cooldown, providing you with 20% parry and additional 5% from Blood Mist and roughly 5% from Riposte, for a total of 30% parry. The Apex talents then turn all that parry into empowered Heartstrikes, making Blood a parry-fueled self-sustained monster. And don't ignore the stat Critical Strike. Thanks to Riposte, it's not just an offensive but also a defensive stat too. Scaling with enemy hits in Mythic Plus and making Blood Deathknights even stronger during high volume pulls. So in a nutshell, the more hits you get from enemies during Dancing Rune Weapon, the more you will parry. Parrying attacks can reduce the rune cost of your Heartstrike and make it hit much harder. Instead of me explaining a fixed order of buttons to press, I feel it's way more useful to understand the meaning of your rotation and what it is you're trying to accomplish. Let's start with explaining the basics first. You have 2 resources, Runic Power and Runes. Heartstrike costs 1 rune, does physical cleave damage and generates Runic Power the more enemies you hit. Deathstrike costs normally 45 Runic Power. With the talents mentioned earlier, this can be lowered. It does physical damage and even cleave damage because of the talent Deadly Reach. It's your main ability to keep you alive. Basically a reactive tool to convert absorbed damage into a self-heal. Blood Boil is your AoE nuke threat generator and a filler. Use it to spread Blood Plague and have empowered Blood Boil from the talent Boiling Point for even more damage. Marrow Rend does physical damage and generates 3 charges of Bone Shield. Death Caress is your ranged ability that does shadow damage by applying Blood Plague, just like Blood Boil does, and it generates 2 Bone Shield charges. Death and Decay corrupts the ground, it heals you, it makes you do more damage, and it also does shadow damage. So these are your core abilities for your rotation. If you are new to the Blood Deathknight, my advice would be go to a dummy and start practicing the following. Run in, pull at range with Death Caress, pop Blood Boil and close at the enemies. Then use the macro Death and Decay to place it at your feet. Now press Heartstrike, hitting multiple enemies because of Death and Decay. That's your pull right there. Start rotating your abilities, first by pressing Heartstrike. This will help get your runic power up. Make sure you keep 2 runes for your next ability. Press Marrow Rend, adding 3 more bones. This should set you up to 5 bones. Now press Deathstrike. Everything is at play now. Your bones, your cooldowns. Make sure your Death and Decay doesn't run out and that your Blood Boil doesn't reach 2 stacks. Keep your bones at 5 stacks while you rotate your abilities. It's a mindset and a rhythm you have to get into. It sounds like you're managing a lot. You got your runes rolling, runic power being generated, and you have to keep an eye on all your resources. Keep pressing your abilities with this mindset, and once you get the hang of this, you can start adding cooldowns. Now I've seen this question asked a lot. How much does popping Dancing Rune Weapon actually change your rotation? Do I start spamming hard strike? Does everything change? How do I maximize my damage during this cooldown window? The short answer is, your rotation doesn't actually change. Everything you do during Dancing Rune Weapon simply becomes stronger. Because the Rune Weapon mirrors your attacks, it increases your damage and resource generation. So my biggest tip for maximizing Dancing Rune Weapon is simply this: use it often. During a dungeon run, you generally want to use Dancing Rune Weapon as frequently as possible, instead of saving it forever. Pair it with unused trinkets if you have them equipped, or use them during moments where the group is pushing damage on a big pack. But remember, you should stick to your normal priority system. Runic power management. Now here's the important part. During Dancing Rune Weapon, you'll generate runic power much faster, which means you need to manage it properly. Try not to let your runic power cap at 100. A good rule of thumb is to spend it once you're approaching 80 runic power. Yes, you will often be using hard strike frequently during this window to generate resources. Just make sure you're also dumping runic power with Death Strike, so you don't waste any. Death Strike, your survival tool. Remember, every Death Strike you cast is not just damage, it's defensive healing, and it's the reason you stay alive. Death Strike heals you based on recent damage taken, and it also creates your blood shield, thanks to your mastery. That blood shield gives you a powerful absorb effect, which helps smooth out incoming damage. Here's the breakdown. Keep your bone shield stacks between 7 and 10 whenever possible. Use Marrow Rend when your stack's getting low to refresh them. Try to make sure you don't dip below 5. Avoid overcasting Marrow Rend when your stacks are really high. There is no reason to push it when your stacks are on 12. Spend runic power with Death Strike regularly, roughly every 3rd or 4th ability you press, depending on how quickly your runic power is generating. During Dancing Rune Weapon, you will simply be doing all of this faster and more often, because you're generating runic power much faster during this window. There will be moments where you may need to delay a blood boil for a global cooldown in order to cast Death Strike to avoid overcapping runic power. Avoiding runic power overcap is more important than pressing Blood Boil exactly on cooldown, so don't be afraid to prioritize Death Strike first if your runic power is getting too high. One of the biggest skills of playing Blood Deathknight is timing your Death Strikes well. Death Strike heals you based on recent damage taken, so using it after heavy hits can give you much bigger heals and stronger blood shields. Mistakes to avoid. You don't want to sit at low health with a full runic power bar. That would be just silly and dangerous. But with that said, my best advice is don't overfocus on your health bar. Place your focus on keeping your rotation going. Make sure you're always gripping an ad into melee range, so you can keep your rotation flowing. And trust, as long as you are swinging your abilities, your health will be fine. People tend to see their health drop and go into panic mode. This is what you want to avoid. Trust me on this one. Your healer will definitely appreciate it. The Blood Deathknight in Midnight has one of the heaviest defensive kits in the game, making it feel like you always have something ready for every situation. Besides the parry increase from Blood Mist and Dancing Rune Weapon, providing you with a massive boost to damage and mitigation, you also have Vampiric Blood. This increases your maximum health and healing received, giving a strong, predictable defensive spike whenever you need it. Icebound Fortitude provides a huge damage reduction plus stun immunity, perfect for soaking high bursts of incoming damage. Anti-Magic Shell, very situational, but it does absorb magic damage and protects you from dangerous spells. Just like Anti-Magic Zone, this protects anyone standing inside from magic damage. Lichborn adds Leech and immunity to fierce charms and sleeps. Finally, Purgatory acts as a cheat death, giving you a safety net if things go south. Together, these cooldowns make Blood Deathknights incredibly durable in Mythic Plus dungeons and in raids, allowing you to survive punishing encounters while still dealing consistent damage. And there you have it, that's the full breakdown. Keep this cycle going and you'll maximize both your damage and survivability. And don't worry if you feel like you're making small mistakes, it usually won't be a big issue. It's time to wrap things up. There's honestly a lot more we could talk about with Blood Deathknights. This hero talent build is a lot of fun and definitely worth a deep dive. Smash that like button and I will provide you with one. For now, we covered a lot, just going over your core rotation, so we're going to end it here. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, drop a comment below and let me know. Macros and builds are in the description for you. With all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching this video and until next time, Brinks out.